Welcome. Before we start, did you know that if you like, comment and subscribe here on our channel, YouTube will understand your taste better and will start to show you more videos with this type of content more frequently, so what are you waiting for? Subscribe here on the channel. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden hues across the horizon as we sped down the highway, the wind ruffling through the open windows of the car. The long road stretched endlessly before us, a metaphor for the journey we'd been on together, or at least, the one I had convinced myself we were on. James sat beside me, his fingers drumming absent-mindedly on the steering wheel, while I stared out the window, my mind miles away. The road trip was supposed to be the escape we needed, just the two of us, no distractions, no pressures. But instead, it felt more like an obligation. I had always believed that a road trip could fix anything, that the miles would give us space to reconnect, to talk, to laugh again like we used to. But as the hours passed, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something had been missing for a long time. The intimacy between us was no longer spontaneous or easy, it was forced, mechanical, like we were merely going through the motions of a relationship we no longer understood. "Anna, can you stop zoning out?" James' voice cut through the quiet, pulling me back to reality. His tone wasn't angry, but there was an edge to it, the kind that made me want to pull back further. "I'm not zoning out," I muttered, shifting in my seat, my eyes flicking to him before returning to the empty road ahead. "Just tired." "You've been tired for weeks now," he said, glancing at me, his brow furrowing in concern. "Is it really just tiredness, or is there something else going on?" I bit my lip, unsure of how to answer. The truth was, I didn't know. I didn't even know if I wanted to know. The distance between us had been growing for months, and every attempt to bridge that gap only seemed to make it wider. It wasn't that I didn't love James, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the love we shared had become a performance, something I had to keep up because it was expected of me. Was that even love? "I'm fine," I said quickly, offering a smile I didn't feel. "Let's just focus on the trip. It's supposed to be fun, remember?" James gave me a skeptical look, but didn't push further. The silence stretched out again, this time heavier, more suffocating. It was the kind of silence that only existed between two people who had stopped really knowing each other. After a while, the tension was too much. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay, that this relationship was still something I wanted. Maybe that's why I snapped. "Why do you always do this?" I finally asked, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "Why do you act like nothing's wrong?" James' head jerked slightly in surprise, his grip on the wheel tightening. "What's that supposed to mean?" I hesitated, trying to find the right words, but they came out sharper than I intended. Why are we even doing this? Going on trips, having special moments, when none of it feels real anymore? James' face hardened. "What the hell are you talking about?" "I'm talking about us." I nearly shouted, the frustration bubbling to the surface, too much to contain. We're stuck in this cycle, pretending everything is fine when it's not. I'm pretending everything is fine. I've been pretending to love you, James. There was a moment of stunned silence. The kind that makes everything freeze in place. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. My breath caught in my throat as soon as they left my mouth, and I immediately regretted them. I could see the shock on James' face, his expression changing from confusion to something darker. "You've been pretending?" His voice was low, dangerously calm. "You've been pretending to love me?" I didn't mean it like that, I quickly backtracked, panic rising in my chest. "It's just. I've been so confused. I don't know what's real anymore. I've been going through the motions, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to be in love, and I tried to be, but don't," he cut me off, his voice rising with hurt. Don't make it sound like it's my fault. You said it, Anna. You've been pretending. This whole time, you've been lying to me. I couldn't find the words to explain myself. How could I explain the knot that had been forming in my chest for months, the feeling of suffocating under the weight of expectations, his expectations, our expectations? The realization that I was no longer sure who I was in this relationship, or if I even wanted to be in it at all. I didn't want to hurt you, I whispered, my voice faltering. I never meant for any of this to happen. James' grip on the wheel tightened again, his knuckles going white. I can't believe this, he muttered under his breath, his eyes now fixed on the road with a fierce intensity. I can't believe you said that. He fell silent, and I could feel the anger radiating off him even though he wasn't saying anything more. The atmosphere in the car had shifted, turned cold and heavy, like we were two strangers sitting next to each other in a car. I knew I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross, but I also knew that there was no going back from this. This wasn't just an argument, it was a breaking point. For the rest of the drive, we didn't speak. The silence stretched on, thick and uncomfortable, as the miles rolled by. The tension between us had built to a boiling point, and neither of us seemed to know how to put the pieces of this broken conversation back together. All I could do was stare out the window, wondering how we had gotten here, and if we could ever go back to who we were before. The sun was already beginning to set, casting a dull orange light across the road as we continued driving in silence. The tension in the car was palpable, a thick, suffocating cloud hanging between us. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt so distant from James. It was as if the words I had said earlier were a permanent rift, one that couldn't be undone. I stared out the window, the scenery blurring past, but my mind couldn't escape the gravity of the situation. How had we gotten here? I glanced at James. His jaw was clenched, his eyes fixed straight ahead, his grip on the steering wheel still tight. The silence between us was deafening, every minute stretching longer than the last. I could feel the weight of the words I had spoken pressing down on me. I faked my love for you. The admission felt like a betrayal, even though it was the truth I had been avoiding for months. But the regret was overwhelming, and I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was falling apart. Anna, James said suddenly, his voice low and steady, but there was an edge to it that made my stomach tighten. You have to explain what you meant by that. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making it difficult to speak. I didn't mean it the way it sounded, I stammered, my hands fidgeting in my lap. It's just. I've been so confused, James. Everything felt like it was slipping away, and I didn't know how to hold on anymore. I've been pretending to feel something I wasn't sure I felt anymore. He didn't respond immediately, but I could feel his gaze on me now, burning a hole through the side of my face. So you've been pretending, he repeated slowly, each word hanging in the air like a heavy weight. For how long? I squeezed my eyes shut, not sure how to answer. It wasn't as if I had consciously decided to deceive him. It was more that I had let myself get lost in the routine, in the comfort of what we had. We had been together for 3 years, and somewhere along the way, I had convinced myself that I was in love with him even though I wasn't sure anymore. The truth was, I hadn't felt that spark, that fire, in a long time. It was as if the connection we once had slowly been replaced by a numbness I couldn't explain. I don't know, I whispered. It's not something I can point to, not something that happened all at once. It just faded. James didn't respond. Instead, his knuckles whitened further as his grip tightened on the wheel. He was silent for what felt like an eternity, his lips pressed together in a tight line. I could feel his anger simmering beneath the surface, but I didn't know how to calm it. I didn't know how to fix something that felt irreparably broken. Finally, he spoke, his voice cold and detached. So, what does this mean? What are you saying, Anna? Are you saying that this whole relationship, everything we've built, is a lie? I flinched at his words, the sharpness of his tone hitting me harder than I had expected. No, I said quickly, shaking my head, though I wasn't entirely sure if I believed my own words. I'm not saying it's a lie. But I think I've been living a lie. I've been convincing myself that everything's fine, that I love you the way I'm supposed to, but I'm not sure anymore. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. James didn't speak, but I could feel his anger building, his body tense as if he was holding himself back from saying something worse. I knew I had hurt him, but the truth was, I had hurt myself too. This wasn't just about him, this was about me, about the person I had become in this relationship. How had I let it go this far? We passed a small diner, its neon sign flickering in the dusk, but neither of us made a move to stop. James's eyes never left the road, and I was too afraid to say anything more. What could I say? How could I fix this? I wanted to apologize, to tell him that I didn't mean it, that I still cared for him in some way, but every time I opened my mouth, the words felt hollow. The truth was that I had been pretending to love him for a long time, and now that I had admitted it out loud, I didn't know where to go from here. How could I go back to pretending? How could I ask him to trust me again when I had already shattered whatever was left of our bond? The miles seemed to stretch on forever as we drove, neither of us willing to break the silence. I could feel the weight of my confession in every inch of the car, the thick air pressing in around us. It was a silence filled with so many unspoken things, anger, regret, confusion, but it was also a silence filled with a desperate longing for resolution, for something to change. As the car veered off the highway and onto a smaller, winding road, I finally spoke again, my voice barely above a whisper. James, I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you. He didn't look at me, but his jaw tightened. You think that makes it better? I shook my head. No. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know how to fix this. There was a long pause before James spoke again, his voice strained, as if he was holding back something much deeper. Maybe we can't fix it. Maybe it's too late for that. The words cut through me like a knife, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of what I had done. I had broken something, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be repaired. We had been on this road trip, hoping for a fresh start, but instead, it felt like we were driving straight into the end of something that had never really begun. As the night fell around us, I couldn't help but wonder if this road trip, the one that was supposed to bring us closer, had instead revealed just how far apart we had grown. And now, with the distance between us greater than ever, I couldn't see a way back. The night had fallen completely, and the only sound in the car was the hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of the wind as it swept through the trees. We had reached a small town, its faint lights dotting the distance, but neither of us made a move to stop. The silence between us felt heavier than ever, as if the words we had exchanged earlier had cast an irreversible shadow over everything. I glanced at James, but he was staring straight ahead, his face hard and unreadable. It was as though the man sitting next to me was a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. The person I had once loved, the person I had once thought I knew inside and out, now seemed like a ghost, distant and unreachable. The road stretched on, a dark tunnel of nothingness, and I couldn't help but wonder how far we had really come. How far had we gone down this path where everything felt like a lie? I can't do this anymore, I said softly, breaking the silence. The words came out before I could stop them, and even though I wasn't sure what exactly this meant, I felt like I needed to say it. The air was thick with tension, but I knew it had to be said. I can't keep pretending, James. Not with you, not with myself. I don't even know who I am anymore in this relationship. James didn't look at me. He kept his eyes fixed on the road, his expression still hard. His jaw tightened in what could have been frustration or anger. But there was something else there, too. Something I couldn't quite place, something beneath the anger. Was it pain? Disappointment? I couldn't tell. So, that's it then, he said after a long pause, his voice low, controlled. You're done pretending? Just like that? I don't want to hurt you anymore, I said, my voice cracking slightly. I could feel the tears threatening to spill, but I fought them back. I've been lying to both of us. I've been holding on to something that's already gone, and I can't do it anymore. I could see his grip on the wheel tighten, his knuckles going white, but he didn't say anything. The silence dragged on again, suffocating in its weight. It felt like we were both waiting for the other to make a move, to say something that would either fix everything or make it worse. Do you think this is easy for me? James finally asked, his voice thick with emotion, something raw and painful underlying the words. He was still staring ahead, but I could see the muscle in his jaw twitch, the only sign that he was affected by what I had said. No, I whispered. I know it's not easy. It's not easy for me either. He let out a bitter laugh, though it was devoid of humor. So, what now? Are we just going to keep driving, pretending that nothing's happened? Pretend that this whole thing hasn't fallen apart right in front of us? I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what we were supposed to do. I had hoped, at some point, that the road trip would be our chance to reconnect, to find some spark that had been buried under months of misunderstandings and unspoken frustrations. But instead, it had exposed everything that had been wrong for so long. The truth was inescapable now, and there was no turning back from it. Do you still love me, Anna? James asked suddenly, his voice surprisingly soft. His words caught me off guard, and I turned to look at him, but his gaze was still locked on the road. I don't know, I admitted, the truth escaping before I could stop it. I want to say I do, but I'm not sure anymore. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, and I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to tell him that I still cared for him, that I didn't want to hurt him, but the words felt hollow. The love I once had for him felt like a memory, a fading echo of something that no longer existed. It was impossible to ignore the emptiness I felt, the way the connection we had once shared had disappeared without me even realizing it. James was quiet for a long time. The car hummed softly, the only sound as we continued down the dark road. It felt like we were driving further and further away from each other, and the realization hit me like a slap in the face. There was no way to fix this. The cracks that had formed between us were too deep, too wide. We had tried to make it work, we had tried to fix things, but all we had done was ignore the truth, pretending that the distance between us didn't matter. And now, it was too late to turn back. I think I need some space, I said after a while, the words feeling like they were forced from my lips. I don't know what I want anymore, James. I need time to figure things out. Space? His voice was sharp now, the anger creeping back into his tone. So that's it? You're just going to walk away from everything? I'm not walking away, I said quickly, my voice rising in panic. I'm not leaving you. I need time to think. I need to figure out who I am outside of this relationship. James was silent again, and I could feel the weight of his frustration filling the car. He wanted answers. He wanted to know what had happened, why everything had gone so wrong. And the truth was, I didn't have an answer. I didn't know why things had fallen apart. All I knew was that I couldn't keep pretending to be someone I wasn't. I couldn't keep faking feelings that had long since vanished. The miles stretched on, and every second felt heavier than the last. The small town we had passed earlier now seemed like a distant memory, a place we could never reach. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know if we could ever fix this. But I knew one thing for sure, we were both drowning in silence, unable to pull each other out of the water. The road ahead seemed endless, the darkness swallowing up everything in its path. I could feel the tension between us thickening as each minute passed. It had been hours since we had spoken, and the silence in the car was starting to suffocate me. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind racing through the events of the past few days, the words we had exchanged, and the weight of what had been left unsaid. The moon hung low in the sky, its light faintly illuminating the road as we drove through yet another small town, its buildings casting long shadows on the pavement. I didn't recognize this place, nor did I care to. I was lost in my own thoughts, trapped in the consequences of my own actions. I had made a choice, a decision that had shattered the delicate balance of our relationship. I had admitted the truth, and now there was no going back. James had barely spoken since I had asked for space. His grip on the steering wheel was tight, his knuckles white, and his jaw clenched as though he were holding on to the last shred of control. I couldn't read him anymore, couldn't figure out what he was thinking or feeling. The man I had once known so well now felt like a stranger sitting beside me, someone I no longer recognized. I wanted to reach out to him, to tell him that I was sorry, to somehow fix what I had broken, but I didn't know how. I couldn't even fix myself. Do you think this is going to fix things? James's voice broke the silence, sharp and sudden, like a crack of thunder in the night. I jumped, my body tensing at the sound of his words. This space you're asking for. Do you think it's going to make everything better? I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. What could I say? Could a little distance really make things better? Could time apart heal the rift between us, or was this the beginning of the end? I had no answers. I could feel the uncertainty settling in my stomach, heavy and cold. I don't know, I finally whispered, my voice barely audible. I don't know what else to do, James. I need to figure things out. I need to understand where we stand, where I stand. His grip on the wheel tightened further, his face a mask of frustration. Where we stand, he repeated, his tone bitter. You've made it clear where we stand, Anna. You've made it clear that you don't feel the same anymore. I flinched at the words, the truth of them cutting deeper than I had anticipated. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the truth was undeniable. I hadn't felt the same for a long time. I had been holding on to a relationship that was no longer there, clinging to the comfort of familiarity, pretending that things were fine when they weren't. I had faked it for so long, and now the truth was out, and there was no way to take it back. The car swerved slightly as James took a sharp turn, the tires scraping against the asphalt. I don't even know who you are anymore, he muttered, his voice low and filled with something I couldn't place. I don't know if I ever did. The words hit me like a slap, and I turned to look at him, my heart aching in my chest. I'm sorry, I said, the apology slipping out before I could stop it. I didn't mean to hurt you. He glanced at me then, his eyes briefly meeting mine before darting back to the road. There was something in his gaze, anger, hurt, maybe even disbelief. I couldn't tell, but it made my stomach churn. You don't get it, do you? It's not just about you being sorry. You can't just say sorry and expect everything to magically be okay. It doesn't work like that. I wanted to argue, to explain that I didn't expect everything to be okay, that I wasn't trying to fix everything with just an apology. But the words stuck in my throat. There was no simple fix for this. No quick solution. I had broken something that couldn't be easily mended, and now I had to live with the consequences. I never meant to hurt you, I said quietly, the weight of the words pressing down on me. I never wanted this. James didn't respond for a long time, his face set in stone, his eyes focused on the road. The minutes dragged by, stretching into what felt like hours, and I couldn't help but wonder if we were already past the point of no return. Could we still salvage what we had, or was this it? Was this the end? As the car continued to drive through the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. I had changed. James had changed. And the road that lay ahead of us wasn't just the physical one winding through the night, it was the metaphorical road we would have to walk, separately, to figure out where we went from here. I didn't know what the future held, or if there even was a future for us. But in that moment, I realized that we were no longer the people we once were. We had crossed a line, and now we had to face the reality of what that meant. James slowed the car down as we approached a small motel on the side of the road. The neon sign flickered above the entrance, casting an eerie glow over the parking lot. He pulled into a space without saying a word, turning off the engine. The silence between us was suffocating, and for the first time that night, I felt like I could breathe again. But it wasn't the relief of a resolution, it was the air that came after the storm, heavy and thick with unresolved emotions. I wanted to speak, to break the silence, but I didn't know what to say. What could I say? The words I had already spoken felt like they had ruptured everything, and now there was no way to put the pieces back together. "Are you going to stay here?" James asked, his voice flat, almost detached. I nodded slowly, not trusting myself to speak. "I think we need some time apart." He didn't respond, and after a moment, he opened the door and stepped out of the car. I followed suit, the weight of the night pressing down on me, and together we walked toward the motel entrance, our steps heavy and uncertain. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered above us, casting a dull glow on the walls. I could feel the tension between us, thick and suffocating. James checked us in without a word, and soon we were standing in front of a small, plain room. The door creaked as he opened it, and we both stepped inside. The room was silent, the air heavy with everything that had been left unsaid. We stood there, facing each other, neither of us knowing what to do next. The night had stretched on, but it felt like we were no closer to finding the answers we were looking for. And as I looked at James, I realized something I wasn't sure if we ever would be.